Hello and welcome to Digi May's anime movie review show!
Woo!
Whoa! The show we're replacing the Pokemon journey with because Pokemon movies got too terrible to keep watching them. And we've got a habit of sitting around watching old anime movies and occasionally having a few things to say about them.
Just a couple.
So why not make it into a review show? Today we're going to be talking about 4 different movies. The first of which is Chirin no Suzu, or Ringing Bell, a 1978 45-minute-long film from Sanrio, of all people. I think animated by Toei or something.
Probably.
It's this cutie, this little goat boy.
He's so fucking cute.
So
I was so sad. There's like no plushies of him or anything. But...
yeah, of him in either of his forms.
No. I mean... That'd be really weird to have him in, like, mountain goat mode, but...
So this is a movie that took us by shocking surprise, because we watched this at a time where I was trying to, like... Basically, anytime I found anything that looked cute, I was like, I want to watch it with you.
Yeah.
Like, let's watch cute shit. So I mean, mostly because we were getting mad stoned and wanting to watch, like, really cool, colorful, like, old-school animations. So, I see this... a movie by Sanrio. You know, this is a Sanrio character. The people who brought you Hello Kitty. They're known for character goods. Little cutie in a beautiful green field. I had seen like a 30-second chunk of the movie while scouting through films. And I was like, let's watch this because it's cute. What happened in this movie?
So, there's this little lamb, and his mom gives him a bell. And the bell is supposed to, like, you know, whenever he's around... You know, mom's there, can take care of him. So they all live in, like, a little pen.
Yeah.
A farmer's pen. And it's terrorized by this badass wolf guy. So one night, they're all, like, tucked in the pen, and the wolf comes in and murders his mother in front of him.
Yeah.
Brutally.
Yes. Does he murder just his mom or, like, a bunch of sheep
I think
friends?
he murders a bunch of sheep.
Yeah.
And then he was going after Chirin, and then his mom, like, dives in front of him and fucking...
saves his ass.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie is about this little goat boy trying to get revenge on this wolf badass.
In the most bizarre way possible.
Yeah.
He runs away from his little pen in, like, the farmland, and he starts following the wolf around, and he's, like, begging him to
train him.
Yeah. So
he asks the wolf to train him, a lamb, to be like a wolf so that one day he can kill him. So this movie that we literally expected to be like a cute lamb frolicking in a field. No, this movie's dark as shit, and literally nothing good happens in this movie.
Oh, it's full of despair.
It's like
there's like so many motifs of just like small animals just dying and like the circle of life shit, and it's like like wasn't there like a bird and it was like really
you remember this a lot
up.
better than I do.
The bird
honestly.
was really fucked up, and Sharon's like, oh my god, that's terrible, and the wolf is like, yeah, that's life.
Yeah. Well, like, because he follows this wolf around, and, like, first of all, Chirin's constantly getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
Like, he's constantly falling down, like, rocky ravines and stuff, or, like, just getting beat up by the wolf, who's like, go away, kid, I don't want to fucking deal with you. But then I guess Chirin shows so much spirit that the wolf does take him in, right? He trains him, right?
Yeah, the wolf does take him as, like, an apprentice.
Yeah.
I think it's because, like, he is reminded of himself. And
right.
Little lamb buddy.
And so Chirin grows up to be this edgy badass.
He fucking, like, he starts getting, like, a tuft of hair over his eyes, kind of looks like emo. And then he just, like, fucking evolves. Like, a Pokemon evolves.
Yeah, literally, like, this is his first form, and by the end, he's a third stage evolution version of himself. Like, he goes from Charmander to Charizard. Like... he
becomes the fucking Ram.
I guess it would be, Go-Goat to... what does Go-Goat evolve into? Or is that the second form?
Skidoo evolves into
Skidoo
Go-Goat.
into Go-Goat.
And then he evolves into fucking Ringing Bell.
Yeah. I mean, he's got, like, like fucking epic badass horns.
He's like
and
6 times taller.
Yeah, and all of his
super jagged and muscular.
He's always drawn in a way that all of his fur is like pointed right down, like spiky
he's
looking.
He's like savage.
Yeah, he's a savage fuck. And so yeah, he trains with this wolf dude and becomes a badass. And like this color palette you're seeing here is there for like 3 minutes. Yeah, like it's the very beginning of the movie. After that, it's like dark ass scenes,
like icy, like winter wasteland.
Yeah, and yeah, he trains with the wolf, and like basically for the end of his training, the wolf's like, you got to now go like to really become a wolf, you got to go kill a sheep.
Yeah,
like that's what we do. Finish your training. And of course, he goes in to try to kill a sheep, but he can't do it. And it's interesting the way that his character design kind of subtly changes in between when he's feeling different ways.
Yeah.
Because usually he's in edgy badass mode, but then when he becomes afraid to kill his own kind, we see his eyes come out and he looks more like a normal goat, But then he fights the wolf, and I believe he kills the wolf.
He does kill the wolf.
And basically realizes that he has accomplished nothing by doing this, that like the wolf was his only real friend, and like he really just kind of murdered his like father figure.
Yeah.
And
the wolf gives this epic speech after he's slain. He's like, I have trained you well, and like you've experienced all the evils in the world. The world is a shitty place. He basically tells him the world is like fuck.
That is the opinion of this movie. Is like nothing good happens. This world is a terrible place where people fucking die and your life gets ruined, And then afterwards he just kind of like mopes. Like Chirrut's just like, "Oh God, what have I done? I let the fact that my mom died like turn me into this monster."
Yeah.
And it's because the sheep, after he beats the wolf, the other sheep are afraid of him. They're like,
won't go near him
you're
'cause
too
he's a
edgy.
monster.
Yeah. And so he just kind of like goes into a cave and cries, and that's like how it ends, right?
Yeah.
It ends on like a down note.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
Ending.
This is a Sanrio film. So what kind of inspired us to talk about this movie and to create this whole podcast was some interesting connections you found.
Oh, yes. When I was younger, I was a really big fan of Ginga Negra Boshigin. It was one of my favorite anime. It's about, like, this pack dog, and they're fighting bears. And there's, like, a lot of, like, really weirdly similar, like,
images
things.
And
concept. I was thinking that maybe, like, Ringing Bell, they were, like, inspired
by Ginga Negra Boshigin.
But
because Ginga Negra Boshigin was a pretty major like shonen manga.
Yeah, like it had one manga of like the year when it first came out, and the TV anime was pretty big in like not only Japan but also in Europe too.
Yeah, it's a fairly big show. It's it's in the style of like a lot of the older like hyper masculine shonen stuff. Like,
and it's animated by Toei, I think.
Yeah,
which I think this is also.
So it's in the realm of like a Fist of the North Star or something
with
like.
Fucking dogs.
Yeah,
the dogs all have huge fucking pecs too. It's like really.
Oh
weird.
Yeah, they're fucking muscle beasts.
Yeah,
and they, like it's literally about like this cycle of violence with these dogs trying to kill this bear.
Yeah, that has like for generations and generations has just been like tormenting like the dogs and their people and shit. So like it's all about getting revenge. Basically.
And you've got like the main character Geen is like a young dog at the start who has to train to fight the bear, right? Like in much the same way.
Yeah. His father, but it's kind of like a secret that it's his father, is like the leader of the wild dogs who are on a mission to kill the bear, Akakabuto.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was very similar because like the main pack dog was very similar to the wolf. And there's scenes, like, in this where a wolf is, like, attacking the bear in the same way the dogs would, where they just, like, would jump on his face.
Yeah.
And the bear had, like, a fucking, like, got attacked and then got, like, part of his head ripped off. And he had, like, a giant red stripe. And that's, like, Akakabuto means red helmet. And, like, he has a giant red scar in his head.
I forgot that you even fought a bear in this.
Yeah, they fucking fought a bear, and there's also a scene where like Sharon is like falling off a fucking cliff and into like a crevasse, and it's like exactly the same imagery. And there's also one where like he has to like jump over a ravine or like a huge fucking ice like valley thing, and that's a big part in if I remember right. Fucking Gin. So there was like a lot of very similar imagery and like very similar shot compositions, and I was like astounded to find out that Gin actually came out afterwards.
Yeah, our first assumption was that, oh, Gin was popular, this is a Sanrio thing, maybe they were just capitalizing on what was in a popular shonen manga of the time.
No.
But no, this came out in 1978, and Ginga Nagaraboshi Gin, the manga started in 83, the anime started in 86, so maybe this was a big influence on Ginga Nagaraboshi
Maybe.
Gin.
I know like the artist for that was obsessed with like dogs.
Yeah.
Completely obsessed with dogs, like his whole entire life, like...
All he drew was dogs.
Yeah, so I assume that he watched
but
this
like
'cause it has
really
a wolf in it.
muscular dogs. That's an interest. You know, I never think of things that way, but when you put it like that, like the reason you watched Ginga Nagaraboshi Gin is that you're obsessed with animal violence.
Oh, yes.
So you were a big fan of the Warriors book series, Warrior Cats.
Warrior Cats, like Red Wall, Watership Down, all the fucking...
Yeah, you just liked watching animals fight each other. And so,
Well,
yeah.
I just like violence and like gore in general.
But
like,
particularly
that was, like,
when animals are involved,
Yes.
especially as a kid.
Yeah.
Which is why you liked this movie a lot. You definitely enjoyed Chie no Suzu. And when you put it that way, like, yeah, if the author of Nagaraboshi Gin probably has the same kinds of tastes, he probably likes animal violence, so of course he would have seen this fucking movie. And yeah, maybe it was an influence on him. I don't know, maybe it's the same guy. Maybe we didn't do enough research.
I looked up the author guy, and I don't think there was any any kind of
I do think they're both
obvious
I
connection.
think this was Toei though, and
Yeah,
I think they made
I
the
think
anime,
you're
so
right.
maybe that's why some of the imagery is so similar.
That's what I'm thinking.
Have you read the manga at all of Nagaraboshi Gin?
I tried to, but like
it's not
all
not
the
good.
translations I found were shitty. Like it was released in English, but like the only way to get it was like through a fucking app. There was an app of each like chapter, and I was
Weird.
like, no.
How long ago was that?
Probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't.
So it might be out there by now.
Oh, probably. I haven't had any like strong desire to go back.
So what would you score Ringing Bell?
Oh, I
as a
think
movie?
I gave it like an 8.
I think I gave it a 7, and a lot of that was just the sheer surprise of it. Like, just having no idea what this was going to be, and then it turning out to be so just unrelentingly dark and edgy.
Yeah.
Like, that it was never at any point expressing any levity. Except for the very beginning. And after that, it's just like this nihilistic, brutal, everything everyone says is badass. Like the wolf's dialogue is just like really nihilistic and fucked
the wolf is a fucking
up.
amazing character. Like real talk.
He has a great voice too.
I thought like all the color palettes they used in like each different stage in his life was like super interesting. Like I didn't want to look away from it.
Yeah, and
It
I
was aesthetically
loved
pleasing.
his design as a edgy guy.
Oh my god,
like,
me too.
Cute cheating is okay. I don't
Yeah.
think he's that memorable of a character. Edgy cheating
His
is
face
awesome.
is kind of weird. He kind of reminds me of like Thomas the Train.
Thomas
with,
the
like,
Tank Engine.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
With like a sheep body. It's kind of grotesque and awesome.
Older cheating, the first time they show him like standing on the rocks all like fucking edgelord
Oh my god,
and
he
shit.
looks so cool.
Yeah. It was that was why I tried to recommend this to Ben Saint, because I felt like that was something he would draw. Like a
Yeah.
character he would come up with.
Probably.
It's that brand of like really cool edginess. Like I would recommend this to like fans of edgy Pokemon stories, you know, because that's what it feels like.
Definitely.
It feels like an edgy
Definitely.
Pokemon story.
If you like
but yeah.
animal violence, this is a must-see.
Animal violence, or if you just like cool 70s movies. I know a lot of people seem to have seen this as children, and I think this is probably one of those that never really came to the US but did come to other countries, because I got a few people from like Europe telling me, oh wow, you watched Ringing Bell?
Yeah,
like,
it's really
you know.
interesting, like, what gets released over there, especially in, like, the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Because it's always, like, completely different stuff than what in, like, the
Than what we
West we're
got,
used
yeah.
to.
So anyway, that's enough about that movie. Let's talk about Golgo 13.
Oh, fuck yes!
Queen Bee. So this was one we watched because, like, we were moving away from our let's watch all the cute stuff phase and into our let's watch some edgy, cool,
Yeah.
violent shit. And so Golgo 13 is a classic manga series that's still going. It's been going since the fucking 70s, maybe even the 60s. I don't remember. It's been going for fucking ever. That's what's important. And it's about this guy Golgo, who's got really big eyebrows, and he very rarely speaks. And he's a sniper, and he's like an assassin, and his thing is that like if he gets a job, he will complete it. No matter what. He will complete the job. Now he might stretch the parameters of like when and where he kills a person so that more of the narrative can play out.
He might get them pregnant before he murders them.
Yeah.
But he still killed them.
Yeah.
So he did his job.
And kind of what's special,
again.
One of the special things about Golgo 13 is that it's been going for so long, and it's very political, that like it has kind of chronicled lots of different political things that were going on at different points in history.
Yeah.
Like it's been going for so long. Where was it that you saw it called historical fiction? Didn't you see it somewhere like that?
I think on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I was looking at it.
And we were saying it's funny that it's historical fiction now because like at the time it wasn't historical,
but
it was just current events.
Like, it was chronicling like what's going on in the 70s. Like if you're curious about what people in Japan in the 70s thought about like the war.
Yeah.
Fucking
well,
whatever.
this movie came out in the 80s, and it definitely is set during the war on drugs. Like, well, it's about a presidential candidate who is trying to end drugs in America. And his campaign, which is this amazing clip. I had it at the end of the Meta Hole 2, where he's going, "No drug! No drug!" And but like he's obviously supposed to be Reagan, you know, at least to some extent. Like his character's not really that Reagan-esque, but like that
what
politically
Reagan
he's
stands
Reagan.
for.
Yeah,
he is.
I had thought that this was the Golgo 13 movie. I didn't know there were two. This is the second one. That's like an OVA, I think, or just a shorter film. It's only like 45 minutes long.
When did the first one come out?
First one was like a year or two earlier. They're both directed by Osamu Dezaki, who's like the guy who directed Ashita no Joe, Rose of Versailles, fucking everything. Everything important from the 70s and early 80s. And yeah, like it's mostly a cool pulp, edgy thing, you know? It's just about assassins and snipers and shit. But there's little things in there that were of particular interest to me, namely the character Queen Bee. What can you tell me about her?
So, in a silent voice, I was shitting on the deaf girl for being a weak character.
A weak female character, specifically.
A weak female character. And this is the exact opposite of a weak female character. This is what I would define as a strong
now, I think we need to clarify something about this, because when you brought that up, a lot of people didn't know what you meant.
No.
When you say strong or weak, you mean that in a very literal sense of the words.
Yes.
You don't mean strongly written.
I don't mean like
character.
how it's written or like how relatable said character is. I mean like I'm looking at it from being a female and trying to like
relate to
or make connections with someone. Like someone who you could possibly look up to or like, you know, stand by their decisions or respect.
Yeah. So in a silent voice, you ultimately felt that she, by letting characters sort of walk all over her, she was not someone you could support in the way that she acted.
I got frustrated with a lot of like the scenes that she was in and just a lot of the things that she was doing, and that wasn't like
weak-minded female character.
And that's just like something that kind of like upsets me, but not really. Like I realize that those things exist, but
not that it upsets you so much as that you can't relate to it.
It's harder for me to like a character when like they have flaws like that.
Yeah. So what's up with this girl, Queen Bee? What makes her such a strong female character? Because I fucking love this character, and I feel like we could have a really, like, I know you don't care, but like if I had a feminist sitting next to me, we could have a really interesting debate about whether this character is feminist or the total opposite of that. But describe her for me as the sun
So she
makes us
is
orange.
the daughter of the presidential campaign guy.
Yes.
Who he like gets into an affair or something. Like
she was
born
her
from
an affair.
That's what I thought.
It's
so to kind of like cover it up,
Yeah.
His like second guy in charge, his PR dude, the sketchy guy.
Yeah.
Kind of
the real villain of the movie.
Yeah, he wants to like have them excommunicated, like put to the side.
Yeah.
And or murdered and sold into slavery.
Well, yeah. So the presidential candidate was like, you need to get rid of the
the evidence.
These two people. You need to get them out of the country. But his right-hand man, who just manipulates him on everything, like he keeps his eyes shut and like doesn't tell him what's really going on because he wants to protect his innocence.
Yeah.
And like make him think that everything that's going on is like what he wants when really this guy's pulling the strings. So he had the woman murdered, and yeah, he rapes the girl and sells her into slavery. But she's come back as a terrorist with the intentions of killing her father.
Yeah.
That's what she's out to do, and she's got this whole terrorist ring in like Vietnam or something. Where the fuck
I think
were
it's
they?
Vietnam. Like,
it definitely is supposed to look like Vietnam as portrayed in a Vietnam War film.
Yeah.
I don't know if it... No, it was Cambodia.
Cambodia?
Right?
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was in Cambodia, but it looks like a Vietnam War movie. And I guess Cambodia and Vietnam don't look that different,
they're
probably.
pretty geographically, like,
yeah.
close, so I'd imagine they're both
So she's got, like, this village of sorts of terrorists that she's trained, or she's, like, the leader of them.
Her home base.
And their mission is kill the president, kill people related to the president, stop this campaign. Golgo's been put on the case to kill her by the opposing party. Golgo... His role in this movie is, I mean, I guess this is kind of how it is for all Golgo stories. He's never really the main character because he's kind of just a force, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's not really someone who takes a lot of action into his own hand with regards to, like, what the story is. He's just a participant in it and sort of, whether or not he decides to kill you at a particular moment might determine the course of events. You know, that's his main power is he can kill you when he feels like it.
Yeah. But he will kill you if he's supposed to.
You know, there's a bunch of scenes of him, like, he attempts to kill her a few times and fails, but there's plenty of moments where he could have killed her and instead got her pregnant. But what makes this girl special? Tell me about what makes her such an interesting character.
Oh, she has built a child army of all of the children she has had with, like, the male officers and the terrorist organization she's in.
Yeah.
So she, like, will make connections with people by fucking them and, like, having them fall in love with her and bear their children and then raise those children to kill the president.
But she doesn't do this out of, like...
Out of hate. No, she, like...
She just really loves fucking people and having kids.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I don't know how she maintains the body she does when she's had, like, 25 kids.
She's probably started to have kids, like, when she was, like...
young.
As soon as she could, because she was, like...
It's implied she's got a lot of kids.
I think they said she was, like, 27. She's in her late 20s.
You can have a kid once every 9 months, right?
She had, like, 6 or 7 kids.
Yeah.
So, like...
She's having at least a kid a year for the last 7 years. And how has she been doing all the other shit she does while having all these kids? How much terrorism has she done pregnant? We're not going to question the logic of this movie, but she's such an interesting character. Because, like, when she talks about... Because we see her fucking, like, 80 times in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sex in this. For a 45-minute movie, we watch a lot of this girl fucking guys.
There's probably, like, 8 minutes of sex.
Yeah, and... but, like, her reasoning is, like, basically she wants to, like, give something back to these people that she feels a connection with. Like, she feels a sense of community with these men who she's worked with and, like, who fight at her side and stuff. Yeah. And, like, she feels, like, an intense passion, like, a sexual passion from that sense of community. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you helped me do a mission, so I'm gonna, have sex with you, and I want to bear your children as, like, a mark of what we've had together or something.
Yeah.
It's interesting how, like, all the men seem to be understanding that, they're all just like, yeah, we've all had kids with her,
we're cool with that. We're getting our dick wet.
Yeah, nobody's, like, trying to hold her down or anything. They just... I guess she doesn't ask them to be parents. She just... Yeah. There's... Her weird village, like, raises the kids, I guess. I don't know. It was weird.
It was really strange.
It's a fucking fascinating dynamic, but I liked her character a whole lot.
Me too.
And I could easily see people having a problem with this character or this movie, because, I mean, it's pretty exploitative. We watch her fuck a lot of guys. This woman who we know Golgo's gonna kill.
Yeah.
Yeah. He fucks her. He impregnates her. He kills her. Is it implied she didn't have his baby before she died, right?
No, she said that she was currently pregnant with his child while he was killing her.
Because she says, like, I would have loved to know what your baby would have been like.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, she said some shit like that.
And I think a bunch of her kids get killed, too, in the raid. Does she save them all?
I think some of them probably... Like, a lot of people get killed. It's hard to keep track.
It's a pretty action-heavy movie. There's lots of, like, political intrigue. There's lots of guys in trench coats at bars having conversations, stuff like that.
The presidential campaign was, like, literally a puppet. He was, like, on drugs. He was on heroin.
He was fucked up a lot of the time. He was mostly on that heroin because, like, you get the sense that he was originally a very principled guy who shouldn't have gotten into politics because politics is a dirty world.
Politics is super corrupt, and there's, like...
And dealing with that corruption has driven him insane, and now he needs to constantly be doing heroin, in spite of the fact that his whole campaign is anti-drug.
Yeah. He doesn't really know what he's saying, though. He's, like, literally just a puppet at this point.
Right.
He's so fucking broken, like...
Yeah, and of course I don't know if I should spoil the end. How much do we care about spoilers?
We already spoiled the ending.
Yeah, we spoiled all of Cheating no Suzu, too. Well, the biggest twist in this is when the presidential candidate finally, like, after finding out that it was his daughter doing all this and that his wife and daughter had been killed, he finally snaps on his number 2 guy, murders him publicly, and then... Or no, he tries to murder him publicly, fails, and kills himself publicly in like, the middle of a football game
and,
or
like,
something.
a football stadium that's, like, being televised nationally.
Yeah, which is awesome.
It's fucking badass.
It's pretty cool. And, of course, that other guy... Of course, Golgo gets hired to kill the other guy, too.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about Golgo. He has no affiliations and no sides. So, like, he will... I know in a lot of the stories, he ends up basically killing everybody by the end. Of, like, the people who hired him will probably be the next to go when another person hires him to kill them. Yeah. Like, he is the embodiment of that cycle of vengeance. And he doesn't care.
No, he's just along for the ride.
He's definitely... Golgo's... it's interesting to me that he fucks a lot. Like, I've seen only the first episode of the anime that was made in the 2000s, but in the first episode, it starts with him, like, having sex with some random woman, and then the room gets raided, and she just gets, like, riddled with bullets, and he doesn't even care. And, like, in this movie, he fucks this girl just because, and then kills her anyways. You never really get a sense of whether or not he is trying to help her.
I don't think so.
He could have killed her, though, in that part.
I think that he, like, respects her as a leader. Yeah. Like, he can see how powerful she is. I think, like, the characters that are fucking a lot in this it's, like, a correlation between, like, how much power they have and how strong they are and stuff. And I think that, like, it's kind of cool to see sex and power kind of intertwined in that way. But I think it's more of, like, a respect.
More you think it was more, like, because... she fucked him, he let her go that one time? Or was that the scene where she was saying, like, you can't kill me here because, like, my people are in the wings?
Yeah, no, she was like, because he had her cornered in the room, but she basically was like, well, you can't kill me here because, like, they'll know. Yeah. We're in a hotel room.
Which is bullshit.
It doesn't make sense.
It's total bullshit.
He just wants to fuck her.
Yeah.
Because he has an opportunity to.
He kind of lets her go in the jungles of Cambodia, too. Because, like, this was...
What was with that weird...
There's a really weird part in this movie where... So this is the part that I question... I don't understand it. I like it anyways because it leads to badass action scenes. God, this lighting is fucking weird. Yeah. We look like we're in some kind of trippy fucking slasher movie. There's a part where they introduce this PTSD soldier guy who I guess had fought in Nam.
I'm wondering if he had been a character, like...
in Golgo?
Like a reoccurring character.
Because they spend a lot of time, like, building up to him, like, showing... He's, like, playing piano madly in a house or something. And then this government dude comes up to him and he's like...
kind of the opposite there. There are, like, a lot of holes. Like, they did...
Oh, there are holes.
They definitely, like, did explain who he was, like, for a new viewer, but I kind of got the sense that he had, like, been an established character.
I don't think they'd kill an established character in
I
the
think
movie.
they would, like...
I don't know. I'd have to read Golgo. I didn't get that sense, though. I just got the sense he was a fucking weird plot element because they wanted to have, like, a cool guy to fight.
Yeah.
But then... So, basically, this guy is hired because I guess they think that Golgo's not... Like, they're worried he might not get the job done or something, so they also hire this guy to go kill the girl.
They really want her dead.
Yeah.
Like, they need assurance that she's going to be dead soon.
This guy brings, like, a whole paramilitary troop into Cambodia with all these helicopters and shit, like raids the village.
Yeah.
It's basically a scene from Rambo. I've only seen Rambo 4, but this is like a scene from Rambo 4, where like all these helicopters storm in, they're murdering everybody in the village, and it's like just one crazy sadistic dude. The weird part about this scene is that Golgo fights him. Like, Golgo shows up, and he fights with the villagers against the other guys. But why? They're all trying to kill the girl.
Because the PTSD guy was, like, murdering innocent-ish people.
Does
like,
Golgo want to stop him for that reason?
I don't know
like,
necessarily it is for that reason, but, like, he was causing so much unnecessary harm, and I think, like, it's more of a pride thing. Like,
I was under the assumption Golgo just, like... doesn't want anybody else to take his kill.
Yeah, no, I definitely had that impression. Like, it's a pride thing. Like,
they never established that, though. Why didn't they say something?
I don't know.
All it would take is one line of Golgo being, like, or someone saying, like, oh, you can't put another guy in the same case as Golgo. He'll kill that guy. Like, he wants to be he has to kill them himself or else it's not good. Like, something like that, because Golgo spends a lot of time in this scene killing this dude's military guys and this dude. Like, they have a huge fight, and meanwhile, he just lets the girl get away, but then he kills her later when it's more plot appropriate.
Yeah, it's definitely more plot appropriate, but they have to have somebody die. You know, they gotta have some cool violence in here.
Yeah, it was a cool scene.
It was definitely
cool character.
Cool.
He was fucking crazy and murders a lot of people, so it was exciting, but it didn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah,
I'm gonna turn the light on.
Kind of obvious to see like what they were doing by introducing his character, and like it wasn't necessary at all.
Right.
It was definitely cool.
So what would you score this film?
I think I gave it a 7.
I gave it a 7. I'd give it like a strong 6 to a light 7.
I thought the music was really cool in this.
Oh, I forgot
we did not
how cool the music is. Oh, I've remixed the songs from this movie. You may hear me attempt to rap over them at some point. But yeah, there's this fucking awesome opening track. It's prepackaged vaporwave. Like, it's what vaporwave is trying to sound like, except it was that because it was the 80s.
Yeah.
You know? And it's fantastic. And then there's the ending song, which is the same song, but in Japanese and with, like, a different instrumental palette. It's great. There's a bunch of great music in the film. You know, the animation's pretty great, pretty solid.
It's pretty cool.
The directing, if you've seen anything Osamu Dazaki's directed, you know exactly what the imagery's going to be like. He has a very specific style. I don't know how I feel about his directing, because some of the shit's just weird. Yeah. Like, there's some moments in the movie where, like, he does something really unique, but it's like, why? Why did you make that, like, I don't know. He does a lot of the, like, triple pans and stuff. He's, like, the guy who started that. Lots of harmonies, which is where it turns into, like, a painting at the end of a scene. But it seems kind of random sometimes. Like, it's not always to highlight a really dramatic moment. Sometimes it just happens.
I guess because it's pretty...
Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of weird shit in there. And I've seen, like, because he also directed a Blackjack movie in the 90s that's very similar in tone and style to this, and I hated that movie. This is way cooler. I really want to watch the first Golgo movie now because I enjoyed this one. But the main reason I gave it a 7 is that I loved Queen Bee's character so much. Like, she was so interesting with the way she uses sex and thinks about sex, that that was what gave me the boner. You know, the boner for the film. I
also received a boner.
All right, next movie we're going to talk about is, God, you can't see that at all, but it's 5 Star Stories.
Oh, what a shame. The art is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. This is like an hour-long movie that is an adaptation of, I guess, just a small part of a longer-running manga.
Do you think it was, like, the beginning? Or
That's
do you
what I
think-
assumed.
That's what I kind of felt, because, like, they did introduce the mech.
Yeah, it feels like a build-up to the introduction of this mecha. Oh god, this picture's so bright, it's fucking with our... fucking with our thing. Stay... Focus. Focus.
You just have to constantly move.
Yeah. I think maybe I should just get rid of that. Let's just go... but I want it to be on screen for when we're talking about the movie.
Yeah.
What do I
Pause it and
do?
find a new picture.
Okay, we got a piece of fan art back there now. You still can't see
You
it.
still can't see it.
There's
but
no images from this movie that are dark because the movie's bright as shit.
Yeah, like all the characters are yellow and white.
Yeah, it's a longer running manga. The only thing I really know about it is that it is my friend Ghost Lightning's favorite manga, and that it's a mecha. Would you call it more sci-fi or fantasy? I guess it's more sci-fi, but the visuals are more
Yes.
fantasy.
It's definitely a fantasy, like, setting, like a fantasy-ish
world.
place.
It's
But it is sci-fi, like...
Yeah, I guess the concepts are all sci-fi for sure. But, like, what's interesting about this aesthetically is that it does not look or feel like most mecha shows, especially of the 80s.
No.
Like, you know, when you think mecha, you think spaceships, outer space, you know, you think
Like a military...
war. Yeah, military, war setting, that kind of stuff.
Geometric shapes.
Geometric shapes. This is definitely inspired by high fashion. Like,
Yeah.
high fashion.
Like Lady Gaga. levels.
Yeah, like, you know, French New Wave fashion
Yeah.
or something. Which is
fashion
really
on.
fascinating in a mecha series, especially because the mech is pretty normal mech. Like, other than the fact that it's all
It's
gold and has a really
gold.
cool headpiece.
But you can definitely tell it's a mech.
Yeah,
It is a mech.
when it shows up, you're like, oh, like, that looks like a Gundam. You know, like, it looks like... And it looks like an awesome Gundam. Like, it looks like the coolest Gundam. It would be in, like, the top... If it was a Gundam, it would be in my top 10 Gundams, for sure. Like, this mech is cool as fuck. I have not felt the pull of wanting to own a model kit for, like, 10 years until watching this movie. Like, You know, when I was a kid, I used to get mechs for, like, G Gundam, which had really distinctive designs. I haven't wanted one in a very long time, especially because all the good mechs Victor bought the model kits for, so I didn't need to. But, like, when I saw this guy, I was like, oh, I'd build that. You know, I'd spend some time, build a gold mech, put it on my shelf, you know, get a fucking perfect grade or whatever. But, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful mecha, but, like, the characters in this and their fashion... First of all, highly androgynous designs.
Yes.
The
Like, the main guy, you cannot tell.
No, and that's important to the story. It's not just... Like, a lot of shows that do, like, the pretty boys thing, in the context of the show, they're just guys, but, like, you know, if you look at them, you would not be able to tell. In this movie, like, the main character is very feminine, and that's kind of important. There's a guy he's kind of friends with who kind of tries to rape him.
Yeah, that's like, he tries to casually rape him.
Which was fantastic.
It was.
It was a great scene, just because it was like this military dude who had really just been his escort. Like, he was just kind of taking him around on the planet. And they kind of become buddy-buddy. And the guy knows he's a dude, but, like, is totally into him.
Yeah.
And he gets sloshed and tries to, like, fucking sexually assault him. And the guy seems like he's definitely offended, but also seems like he might be used to it. He fends him off easily enough, but, like, it definitely shows you, like, something about that character. Like, that guy thought he could get away with it or something. Like, he's kind of a rapist. And it felt very real, you know?
Yeah, because he's just, like, a good guy, you know?
Yeah, he's just
good
like
guy rapist
he
dude.
seems like a normal dude, but then he gets drunk and he's like he's not a good guy.
No.
And I was like, man, that's how rape happens.
Yeah.
That's scary. But, you know, it was a great scene. And, our effeminate lead is, He's some kind of, like, dignitary, I guess. This plot confused the shit out of me.
Yeah.
By the way.
They definitely did not do a good job at, like,
explaining what the fuck was happening.
Anything.
I think this was probably made for fans of the manga.
Yeah.
Like, this didn't feel like it was meant to be,
like,
a complete story. Like, it definitely was not supposed to be the whole story.
No.
I don't know if there was any intentions to make more of these, but, like, they definitely skip. I would not be surprised if this starts, like, a couple chapters in and then goes until a stopping point and maybe skips some extra details in the middle, just because it does so little of the establishment part at the beginning, and then it just kind of goes until the introduction of the mech, and, it resolves the story of this film, but it does not feel like we've told much of the story of this world.
Yeah.
But
all that's really explained to us is, like, who the women in this world are.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, a special breed of women who are, like, half mech. They're, like,
they're like android women or something, or cyborg women.
Yeah. And they basically are the ones that can, like, connect with the mechs and stuff.
Yeah.
And these women, like, if they're not married by the time they're, like, 16, like, a lord they have to, like, be married off to a lord of the land.
Right.
And there's, like, this, bad bastard who, like, is keeping girls in his castle until they're, like, of age.
Yeah.
And then forcing them to, like, pick him to be his concubines.
Yeah.
So he could have, like, all of the power in the world and all of the women.
And that's the interesting thing about it, is that it's, like, a deeply messed up sexist system, but there's, like, concessions in it where it's like, yeah, if you fall in love with a guy and you choose your own husband, then yeah, you get to live free. But if you don't choose a guy by the time you're 16...
there's, like, no opportunity for them to choose a guy because,
yeah,
like...
and they're being trapped by this dude.
Yeah, they're being, like, trapped in a castle.
Right. I just thought it was really fascinating that, like, it's seen... Within the world, it is seen as, like, what this guy is doing is wrong, and they come to rescue these girls. But also, like, outside of that, the whole system's wrong.
It's pretty fucked up.
The whole system is bad. That, like, if these girls don't just happen to find someone they're okay with spending their life with, then
the
they will
women
be
are
sold off.
possessions, regardless of who they end up with.
Like, so there's these 3 girls who, I guess they all... were sort of, I don't know, were they raised by the effeminate dude? Like, he knew them as little girls.
I think he was
knew them when they
probably,
were
like,
young.
a father figure or something.
Or, like, a big brother figure. He knew,
Yeah.
it's very unclear, but we know that he knew them when they were young, and he's sort of here to help them because 2 of them have been captured. The third one, I think she was just off somewhere. I don't remember what she was doing.
Wasn't she with, like, the evil guy who, like, had... made her into Frankenstein at, like, the very beginning? I thought that's what she was.
Dude,
there was, like, a really weird scene where there was, like, a woman who was, like, being awakened, and she had, like, scars all over her, and he's like, I'm sorry I've made you hideous, and she's like, it's okay if I'm hideous for you. And I was like, word. You're not ugly.
There was literally a moment halfway through this movie where I asked you what was going on, and you explained the whole android plot and systems, and I was like, I don't remember having read any of that. Like, I was so lost watching this, partly because I was stoned, but, like, also just the way that it's paced and the way images go by is very strange. Like, every shot is beautiful.
Yes.
The animation's gorgeous, the artwork's gorgeous, but shots kind of are timed weirdly, right? Everything feels very long, and like, I don't know, there's not a clear sense of progression in the narrative. It just kind of happens, which is, it's fine. It's paced like a political thriller. It's paced like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, but if you started from episode 3 and went to episode 5, like, without the stuff you needed to know. So I was just very easily lost, and I was glad that you were watching it with me and could help me to understand
really like political systems and systems of power.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very interested by that stuff, and, like,
maybe
that
you can help me watch all of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Mega invested into something.
Because this is definitely tonally... this is a very dark story. Like, and that's another part of why the aesthetic is so interesting, that it's got such a, like, a fashion-heavy...
Yeah, everything is
bright...
beautiful and, like, looks eloquent, but, like, it's hiding something deep, sinister, and, like, evil.
But it doesn't have that feeling that I feel like there's a cheap way to, like, I don't want to call like Madoka cheap necessarily, but like the stuff that's copied it, where they try to be. What's the Magical Girl Raising Project? The girls are super cute, but they gotta kill each other, and it's like corny as shit. This is not like that.
No.
The reason it's so fashionable and elegant is that these are nobility, and they're like, it's basically just peacocking. It's just that the way, like most generic fantasy will just put them in like, you know, classic Western attire, like, oh, the king's wearing like 8 robes, and you're just like, okay.
You've seen that.
In this, the characters just look like exquisite and like really interesting. Everyone's got shoulder pads that go like 10 times the size of their head.
This was like such a great way to like set a culture and to set a setting.
Oh yeah,
it was like really cool.
And
because it's like nothing I've ever seen before, but it does borrow a lot from like you know, French freaky shit.
Yeah.
But what is French freaky shit?
I would definitely pay to see Lady Gaga wear all of these outfits. I would go to a tour of her if she was doing a 5-star stories tour, you know, because it's all shit she'd wear.
Oh yeah.
And of course everyone's fucking beautiful. The character designs are gorgeous, very Clamp-esque. You know, everyone's tall and lanky and like long, beautiful faces, gorgeously detailed eyes, long eyelashes, you know, cool hairstyles and stuff. Long legs, slender. Everyone's beautiful.
Indeed.
And yeah, I guess the plot is basically just that there's this bad dude who's trying to force these girls to marry him. They don't wanna. One of them gets out by going to another noble, like one who she's okay with, I guess.
Yeah, he rescues her though.
Yeah,
he rescues her from the king's castle.
She just like kind of breaks out though, right? She was the one who did like a mad dash to the other guys. It's basically like there's 2 castles in the same town.
Did she even know him, or was she just like so eager to not be married to like the king?
I got the impression that she liked that guy, but it wasn't like a true love thing. It's more like this is a good person.
Yeah.
I will accept him being my guy.
Yeah,
you know?
that's the kind of feeling I got.
Yeah, and so she, like, there's this scene of basically, like, her leaving one dude's castle and just hauling ass across town to the other dude's castle and being like, oh, we gotta get married before that guy fucks me. And he's, like, done, you know? And then the other girl is... It seems like she's in love with the main character guy. Main character guy is kind of undecided about whether he loves her because he's got, like, a hangover of a past relationship or something.
Yeah.
And, also, like the ghost of his past lover comes to him at times, but it's actually, like, another girl, like, literally wearing a disguise and tricking him. Wasn't that a thing? What the fuck was that about?
I don't even know.
There's so much stuff.
I don't even know.
Both of us really want to read this manga.
Yeah, I would love to read this.
Like, after watching this, I was like, fuck, this is so cool.
It's, like, ongoing now.
Is it?
Yeah, it took, like, a hiatus, and then, like, in 2010, I think it, like, came back.
The fuck is that a thing? How could that be possible?
It's not in English, of course, but...
I know there's got to be fan translations,
because
Ghost Lightning's read it, but, oh my god, I'd love to go out for an art book of this. And I know this was something that, like, had some attention on it in the 80s, but, like, I don't think it was ever a mass... Like, I've only heard about it from, like, big mecha fans. Mm-hmm. And, there was one point, I have this Newtype magazine from, like, 2006 that has an advertisement for, like the cover art is a mech clearly designed by the 5-Star Stories guy. And, like, there's a whole feature about some new anime project that he was heavily involved with. It just never happened.
Oh.
Like, the magazine is this whole thing about, like, oh, we're making this movie. And I'm like, this movie never came out. What the fuck are you talking about?
So sad.
So maybe that's why he hasn't worked on another thing since then. His last thing fell through. I don't know. But, yeah. This one's pretty cool. Here's some things I really liked about it that I thought were noteworthy. First of all, scale in this movie. Everything is really tall. Like, they've gone out of their way to frame things to make them look tall. For instance, like, you'll see windows but never see the top of the windows.
Yeah.
So you'll see like a long, thin window that just goes up off the screen. And it makes it feel like every room is 90 feet tall. Or it'll have like super wide angle shots where you'll see like a tiny person and like this huge building behind them. Or like the mechs look fucking huge.
They look so fucking big.
The people look fucking huge.
It's
like,
great.
There's the opening scene when the main character gets picked up by the military guy. It's in like this giant desert rover machine that just seems to be like a car. Like, everything's tall, and they've gone to such great lengths to make it feel that way, and just makes it visually really interesting. Then there's the violence.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah!
Oh, that's great.
This movie has
great.
the coolest violence.
It's like the most artistic, beautiful way to dice someone up.
Everything's super elegant. Like, there's not a whole lot of violence, but when it happens, it's sudden.
You do not expect it.
And very brutal.
Yeah.
But, like, beautiful. Like, the first time, it's just a dude getting his arm cut off. And it's like, this dude's about to shoot somebody, and then you just see, like, a flash of light go up, and then his arm just, like, spiral through the air, like, gorgeously. And you're like, whoa! Yeah! And then later, there's a part where they're, like, doing their big escape, and he, like, chops a guy in fucking thirds and shit. Like,
but
people
it's, like,
get
artistic.
diced.
Like, it's, like a swirl. And, like, it's just...
It feels like the sword floats through the air.
It's
in
really
like
graceful.
Like a windy bimby, you know?
It was fucking amazing.
Yeah, the violence was, like... I'm generally a fan of violence, but only when it's, like cool. You know? Not so much when it's like, oh, look how gory this is. Like, oh, we're gonna shove this violence in your face. When it's like, swoosh, like artistry.
Yeah.
Like, look at this thing I just pulled off.
I'm a big fan of, like, using it in extreme moderation.
Yeah.
Like, when you do not expect it, when it does not fit the tone at all. And it's just, like that first scene where the guy fucking gets amputated. It's like... I did not even think that the show would do that. But the way it did it, like, just took me aback. It's like, wow.
It was cool. Because there should be violence in it. Because it's a dark political thriller, but, like, it's handled very gracefully. It is not a film that is, like, for an 80s, this feels very different from any other 80s movie. Mm-hmm. Because even though it has the violence and the sci-fi, it very deliberately does not try to be shock jockey kind of thing. Like, we watched a movie we're not going to review on here, The Guyver, the first Guyver anime movie, which is pretty bad and corny.
Yeah.
And that one's goal is to be shocking and violent. Like, that's all it does, is it's a bunch of monsters killing each other with huge blood sprays going all the way through the air. I mean, which was cool. But, like, cool. The story was just, like, nothing. Like, the main character guy gets turned into a monster, and they just start, like, the bad guys start killing his friends. It's, like, all these shocking scenes of his friends getting killed, and then they capture his girlfriend, and, like, oh, we can mail you all our body parts and stuff. Like, it's just to be edgy and violent, and that's fine. It was a fun movie. Yeah. It was bad, but it had fun moments. This is nothing like that, It does not revel in its violence, but it is the coolest violence. So yeah, I give this movie a 7 out of 10 because I don't understand it and it feels incomplete. It feels like the first chapter of a bigger story, but I want to read that bigger story for sure.
I think I gave it an 8.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's beautiful and elegant.
I gave it a 7 or an 8. But yeah, that fucking scene where that guy gets diced up. My favorite scene, though, I totally forgot about that until you were talking about yours, was when it was like the gold mech versus whatever other mech.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The evil mech was like shooting its like death laser. And then, like,
it was like a ship. It was an airship.
Yeah, it was some fucking crazy shit.
And they had this huge laser, and they're like, we're going to shoot him with our big fucking laser. And the girl's like, oh no, they're going to shoot us with a big laser. Yeah. And he goes, don't worry, we have one too. And a laser the size of the entire mech is pulled off of his back.
It was so fucking badass.
It looks like a fucking torpedo gun. And he just blasts this huge fucking laser at the machine. Of course, it blows up like an atomic explosion. Yeah. It was pretty epic.
It was so dope.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I just loved how nonchalantly he was like, don't worry, we have our own.
Yeah.
And I was like, of course.
I will say, like, out of the, like, I kind of feel, I almost want to say that this is an 8. And really, like, Chiden no Suzu and Golgo are more like strong 6, you know, like 6.8. Like, it's still a 7 on my Mal because I can't communicate nuance in the scores, but, like, they're, like, good movies that I probably wouldn't watch again. Like, I can't really see watching either one a second time unless it's, like, years later where I've forgotten it. This I would watch tomorrow again because, like, just for the tone.
It was fucking beautiful.
You know?
There's nothing, I've never seen anything like this.
No. I mean, tonally, like, narratively, I would compare it to, like, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Game of Thrones a little bit. Like, if you're into those kinds of shows, you could check this one out. But, like, if you want to see that combined with a totally unique aesthetic, that's where this one shines. Anyway, we have one more. That is not it. That's not supposed to be in this folder. Oh, wait, we're on the desktop folder now.
Oh,
That's
boy.
why. There we go. Neo Tokyo, or Manie-manie, The Labyrinth Tales.
Oh, yes.
Which makes, I would say Labyrinth Tales is the title that makes more sense for this. Neo Tokyo is what they called it when they brought it to the US because it's one of them. It was produced by Katsuhiro Otomo, who created Akira. This is from before the Akira movie even came out, I think. I think this is from 87, 89, something like that, late 80s. But it's produced by Katsuhiro Otomo. He directed one of the shorts. In Akira, the city is Neo Tokyo. So obviously they were just like trying to get Akira fans to watch this. But it's not that similar to Akira.
No.
This is an art house film. 3 art house shorts. The first one is Labyrinth Labyrinthos.
Something,
Yeah. Directed by Rintaro. Who is... all of these are like massively important directors. Rintaro was the one who directed... He first was known for Galaxy Express 999. He directed X 1999, which is a movie that I grew up on and was a big fan of. He directed Metropolis, which I also really like. Both of those are movies that are not exactly critically acclaimed, but I like them both. Which, after watching this, I was like... I need to watch all of Rintaro's movies. Like, first of all, I need to rewatch the ones I've seen before, because even though they have been critically not beloved, I remember liking them a lot.
Yeah.
And second of all, what was another big Rintaro movie? He's done a lot of like really big movies in the past, but he directs the first short in this, which is just the most like purely art house nonsense one. And probably my favorite.
Your favorite?
What do you think?
It's my second favorite.
Okay. What did you like about it?
I really loved, like, the circus element to it.
Really? Because that's my least favorite aspect of it. So I'm curious, what did you like about the circus element?
I really am into that.
Yeah, the circus?
It was freaky and it was cool. And I loved, like, all the cool characters and shit that they can create from, like, a circus setting. Okay. It reminded me a lot of, like, Midori without, like,
I haven't
the girl
seen Midori.
Aspect of it.
Yeah.
We need to watch that.
We do. We do need to watch Midori.
Because, like...
I'm surprised it's not on my list.
It should be on
was
your
it an
fucking
OVA?
art house. No. It was created by one guy. He made it himself.
Right.
Because, like, he's a fucking psychopath. But it's a fucking classic.
Well, first of all, I love the design of the main girl in this. She's like... She's like this sort of simplistic Asian doll look, but with big pants.
I love her fucking pants.
Yeah, and the beginning of the film is just her, like, doing some kind of weird, like, karate dancing in front of, like, a big red sky. I get, like, everything, the opening of the movie is just in her house. It's like a classical Japanese home, but, like, everything's fucking weird looking, you know? And I'm totally into the aesthetic of this, which is strong, bold, single color stuff, which I'm a huge fan of. Akiyuki Shinbo is a big perpetrator of that aesthetic, and I've been a fan of his forever. You know, when you get the just right color and the whole frame is just that color, or like a sharp contrast of two colors.
Yeah,
I'm
the
a big fan
contrast,
of
like,
that.
there's like that red color right there.
Yeah.
I don't know, you can't even see it. But
It's a lot of red and blue contrast, which I'm a fan of.
Like, fucking phenomenal.
I hate teal and orange. I love red and blue.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of teal and orange either.
But yeah, so everything's very striking, and the girl is just kind of like, she's really just playing around in her house with her cat, but everything's weird and off-kilter. Like, her mom's, like, chopping onions, and she's sitting in the cupboard under the sink
with like lipstick.
Playing with a lipstick that's, like, lighting up.
Yeah, it's so freaky. Just like I love her character because the way her body is, it's like inhuman but awesome. Like, her legs are too long.
Yeah.
And like the way she's sitting under the table, it's like, it's magical.
Like, her legs are going all the way up past her head, kind of thing.
Like fucking... It's great.
She's just kind of playing around with her cat, and then they get sucked into a mirror, and they find this clown guy, who is a surprisingly not obnoxious clown. I don't know about you.
He's still creepy.
I didn't find him that creepy because he had such a nice face. He looked like
what he was doing was creepy. Like,
yeah, sure.
There was like evil spirits and shit coming out of the alley.
But he seemed like a nice clown.
I would not have followed the clown. I would have gone back.
I would not follow anyone down the weird Ed, Edd n Eddy alleyways. They go through the mirror and they end up in this alley where it's like basically just, you know, like a fence made of like individual planks of wood on each side. And it immediately occurred to me, I have never seen that outside of Ed, Edd n Eddy. And like, I'm wondering if that was a common way that sidewalks were at a time. Like, were neighborhoods built that way at one point where you'd have... The closest thing I've ever seen in reality, because I used to explore whatever neighborhoods I lived in all the time. And one time I did see an alley like that where like there was like a row of houses and another row of houses, and their fences didn't touch. There was like a space between the fences where a little creek ran, like just like a septic creek or whatever. And it kind of looked like that, like, oh, this is just like an alleyway between the houses, but it didn't lead anywhere. It just happened to be there, and you could access it. But like, I've never seen this way of like going through a neighborhood by going between houses' yards, because like in most neighborhoods, houses' yards just touch.
Yeah.
Like there's just one fence, or like the fences are right next to each other. You rarely see, you know, hallways of fences.
I'm wondering if that was like an older way of doing things.
I wonder too, because I wonder if wherever the creators of Ed, Edd n Eddy grew up was like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Maybe like in certain locations there's like different zoning laws and stuff.
And also just the way that the fences are uneven like that.
Yeah.
In both this movie and Ed, Edd n Eddy, it's not like straight fences. They're all like jagged and weird. Like they don't appear to be a built fence so much as just a bunch of sticks in the ground, you know? In any case, she runs down this alley and sees a bunch of trippy shit, and it's all cool. And then she kind of ends up at a carnival, and there's a bunch of cool imagery. It's just a bunch of cool imagery.
It's really fucking cool.
And I think what I like about it is that none of it is like that weird. It's just that it looks weird. Like the things that are happening, I mean, aside from the circus part where it's like a bunch of weird monsters coming out of the ground, like my favorite part is probably just the beginning where she's just at home and like it's literally just a girl playing with her cat, but it's presented in like a creepy, unsettling, like visually
There's, like,
obscure
a scene
way
where the cat's like just running in a hallway in the house, and it's like,
and it looks like it's running backwards or something.
Lights. Yeah, it's like, it's really crazy.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about that short?
There were some really cool like long-legged things.
Yes.
What was that? What can you even interpret that as?
The funny thing is that I saw those and I thought they were awesome, but I also felt like I'd seen them before. I think Cat Soup has something similar, though I have not seen much of Cat Soup, but what really came to mind, the Linkin Park music video for the song Somewhere I Belong. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
It has something like that in it. And I think that video was inspired by, like, old art house anime. Like, it's definitely anime inspired.
Yeah.
And there's definitely Gundams in the video.
That it wouldn't be
Gundam's
that
not art
surprising.
house, though.
Like, this was slightly wildly, like,
I mean,
sort of available.
Yeah, and fucking Linkin Park has done lots of anime-related work. Breaking the Habit was animated by, I want to say Studio 4C or Koji Morimoto or something, a major Japanese animator. They had their own Did you know they had their own Gundam model?
No.
One of their albums had, if you bought the special edition album, it came with a model kit of the Linkin Park
so
Gundam.
Cool.
It looks like shit, though. Like,
I
it's just like an
would,
edgy black
that's really
Gundam.
cool.
But yeah, there is an official Linkin Park Gundam. So the second film.
Which is my favorite.
And it's close second for me.
Yeah.
The only reason I like the first one more is that the imagery just is trippier, and I like that. The second one, though, has more like an obvious message, and that's The Running Man by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. This is the guy who directed Ninja Scroll, Demon City Shinjuku, Wicked City, the Highlander anime, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. He's basically mostly known for his stuff in like the late 80s, early 90s of like a badass action shit.
Yeah.
Cyber City Oedo, like he was a big violence and gore, hyper detailed masculine characters doing hyper detailed masculine things, which this also is. This is entirely indicative of his style, though it's a lot more unique than most of his other shit. Because most of his other shit's like psychics and ninjas, and this is like an F-Zero racer losing his mind and exploding.
Yeah. Which is fucking amazing.
What did you think was cool about this?
I thought just the way the cars were being destroyed was really fucking cool. Like, the color palette was really cool. How the characters were drawn.
The way that, like, the fire would just, like, rip through a car.
Oh my god, yeah, it was fucking cool. Like, it was beautiful.
You grew up with racing in your household.
Yeah, my dad was, like, a famous IndyCar blogger.
How did you feel about this as someone who's seen lots of racing?
Oh, I thought it was, like, very realistic.
Yeah.
Like, the way the cars crashed and stuff, it definitely had, like,
Even
accuracy.
though they're, like, space cars.
Yes.
They are literally the F-Zero cars.
Yeah.
Like, they look like
Fucking
F-Zero
dope.
cars. But it's really cool the way, like, the engine will start flaming, and then the flames will just, like, rip through the whole car, and it'll, like, just crash, and fucking explosions are all beautiful. And yeah, the character art, like, it's, again, very Yoshiaki Kawajiri. His faces are always like that. Those, like, hyper-detailed masculine faces that, like, will go to these extreme expressions. My favorite moments are just when the main character opens his mouth too wide. Like, his mouth goes way too open, and he's just like, and then, like, at the end, when he's, like, bulging so hard that his skin starts ripping and, like, flames are coming out of his fucking veins, and his mouth just keeps getting bigger and bigger until he's just, like, a skull with its jaw all the way open and, like, flames coming out of it. Dope shit.
Yeah. What did you think about when he had, like, was at the very end and he was, like, seeing ghosts and shit?
Yeah.
What did you interpret that as?
I interpreted as he's going the distance, he's going for speed, she's all alone.
In a time.
Needs to be an A and B of that to this song.
Yeah.
Like, that song is about this movie. It's a guy who he can't get enough of the speed.
No.
I mean, the movie's weird in, like, which details it decides to share with us. Because, like, this guy, he's a racer who's apparently nearing the end of his career because he's being, like, psychologically deteriorated and physically deteriorated by racing so much.
He's so many G-forces.
Yeah.
That he is now a fucking psychic.
Yeah. He seems to have psychic powers. There's a scene of him, like, this guy who, I don't know if he's, like, a journalist or a promoter or what his relationship is to the guy.
He's a journalist.
And
he was on the case.
He watched this dude in, like, his training car or whatever, just, like, psychically destroying everything in the room in a fit of rage and pain. And, like, his thing is that he just kind of, like, murders like, it's a blood sport, and he just kind of kills everybody else and wins.
Yeah. And then kills himself.
Yeah. Yeah, so this just goes where he ends up killing everybody else on the track, wins, and just keeps going. And, like, it's implied that he sees himself as still being in a race. Like, he sees all these ghosts of other cars appear in front of him. Like, he still believes it's going, and he can't stop, you know, until his car eviscerates itself and he is thoroughly dead.
I was, like, really freaked out when, like, he was, like, seeing ghosts on, like, in his peripheral vision, and that they kept coming from other directions, but, like, there was only one car in front of him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, like,
this dude's tripping.
This guy he's gonna fucking explode. That's all that's left.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty sure it was going in that direction from an early point that this guy was gonna run himself into the grave, but
I
he
thought
takes
he already
everybody
had,
with him.
because I couldn't tell the racers apart.
Yeah.
And they were like, I thought he was already dead.
Well, there's a point. I mean, they do say, like, they show his life signs as depleted at one point.
Yeah.
Like, his life support system is off, and he's still racing, you know? So, yeah, it's unclear at what point he dies in there. Could have been at the beginning.
He could have.
Maybe it's just as soon as his eyes roll back in his head, and that means he's dead. But yeah, it's intense, and it's pretty cool. You have anything else?
Like race car go boom.
Lastly, we've got, I don't know what the last one's called, but it's the Katsuhiro Otomo one.
Yeah.
Again, director of Akira, later did Steam Boy, also wrote the Akira manga, which is fucking phenomenal. If you haven't read Akira, punch yourself in the face. That's a hip-hop DX thing that he says. Anyways, he's directed some other shit
Tell me
too.
more.
This one is very different from the other two.
Yes.
It's a lot less art house. It's more of just a short narrative-driven
it's a short
film.
story.
Yeah. Short story is it feels like a short sci-fi, like something that would be in a collection of short sci-fi stories, you know? Like, it's got a very, like, ironic twist to it. It's sort of like a social, political message. It's not really about, like, just artistic expression in like a free-form way. It like is telling a narrative with a purpose.
Yeah. And the dialogue is much like it's a bigger
There's
device.
More of it.
Like in the first one there is no dialogue. And the second one
there is dialogue in the first one, but very briefly. Like the mom says
does it even matter
some
at
stuff,
that point?
and it's all garbled and shit.
Yeah, like the other one is just like the journalist is saying a couple sentences, and this one it's like there's a lot of dialogue.
You know, if I have one complaint about The Running Man, I don't think it needed even as much dialogue as it had.
I don't think so either.
Like,
I don't think like the scenes where he was in the guy's house, there needed to be any dialogue at all.
I thought it was weird at the very end that he like summarizes what had happened. Like
yeah,
he's like,
I don't think
and
that
then
needed...
we never saw him. Like he died, and that never. And I was like, yeah, we
okay.
know, we got it. Like
Yep.
you didn't have to explain anything. I completely got it. But yeah, this one is more of a narrative driven. What'd you think about it?
I thought the message was really interesting. Like I couldn't stand the robot.
Oh God,
It was.
the robot.
I felt his pain.
I think this movie is. I don't know why I decided to eat in the middle of recording this.
Can't resist that nudity ass.
This movie is like intentionally annoying.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely on purpose. It's
it
like,
succeeds too well though.
Yeah.
And it goes on for a long time. Like basically this movie's about some like mid-level management salary man is sent out to this like sunken Tokyo or something, like big city that's like
I think it was
desolated.
Like, was this supposed to be
Desolated?
Cambodia also? It's like some watery, jungly Asian place.
Yeah. Well, I got the
flooded
impression
over.
that it was like a place that had been once a great city and
Yeah,
now it's
but-
flooded. Like I got the impression it was like
It
post-apocalyptic
definitely
Tokyo
used to
or
be
something.
inhabited because there's like
Yeah.
giant neon fucking signs and like buildings and stuff.
Yeah, it's like some underwater place that I guess and this is in a future where robots do all of like the work in shit. And this guy's been sent out to go tell them to stop construction on some big project that's going on. They're like, the government has changed, and we no longer want this project. So he goes there to try and stop it, but it's being run by robots who've lost their minds, and all they think is like this project needs to be finished. Like we have to meet the deadline. That's the only thing that matters. We have to finish this deadline. But like the robot that he has to communicate with is like broken down and like barely able to move, and it speaks really slowly, and it's so fucking obnoxious.
Yeah.
Obviously on purpose. And the guy is just like this bullheaded numbskull who like he can't reason with it because he doesn't know how to communicate. No. He's just like he's just a manager. Like to me he was the portrait of every asshole manager who just wants you to meet the demands of what the company is saying but is not considering your humanity or who you are. Now in this case they are literal robots, but like it's obviously a metaphor. Because, like, the robots keep insisting, like, no, we have to meet the deadline. Like, this is our job. We have to do this. Like, you can't tell us to stop. This is all we have, you know? And the guy's like, management says you gotta stop. You guys gotta stop. You guys aren't listening to me, you know? It's like he doesn't seem to realize until it's too late that he is way overpowered in this scenario.
Yeah.
That these robots have control.
I don't think he realizes it until the robot guy says, anything you say is an obstacle to our mission. And like,
well, he says that like a few times. I think this dude
doesn't. There's one time where like he completely shuts him off. Like,
yeah,
he is completely like invalidated.
This dude, he's
with no override.
And of course, the thing is, this guy, even though he doesn't know how to do, like, he doesn't know how to get them to stop, he can't leave until he gets them to stop.
No.
So he's also operating on the same kind of deadline. He just kind of gets trapped there and loses his mind. Like, the robots keep feeding him, like, bolts and stuff, like, treating him more and more.
Progressively worse. It is sludge at first, and then it is just bolts.
Yeah, and the guy's, like, losing his mind. So finally, he snaps, he kills the robot, and goes to go destroy the system, only for we hear on the news that the old government is back in power, and they want the project running again. And now this guy is going to be the problem child who's gone and fucked it up, and it just kind of ends there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I would say, while I don't know exactly what the comment it's making is, but it is clearly a comment.
Managers suck.
Just
on all levels.
Yeah, like that, or just the irony of these situations of people being treated like robots, of the lack of humanity that comes in projects of this scale, of, like, you know, just viewing people who work for you as just a robot you could tell when or when not to work, you know? And, like, turns out even robots to have some will of their own in this scenario. I think they're mostly robots for metaphorical reasons.
Yeah.
But
the one thing that, like, really confused me is when he first got to the location, and he, like, kind of throws his suitcase in the robot's arms, and the robot's like, who are you? I need identification. But the robot's, like, following him and is, like, going to go put his shit in his room regardless.
Yeah.
Like, why is it doing that?
I don't know.
I was, like, confused.
It's a very weirdly, like,
weird
written,
take on robots.
Short all around.
Yeah.
Like, it took a while to really get where it was going and what the point was, and because the characters are so insufferable, it makes it, like, but even the guy is pretty fucking insufferable.
Oh, yeah. He looks insufferable, he sounds insufferable.
Yeah. And also the animation's kind of awkward in this.
Yeah.
Everything's very stiff, and it was funny because early on there's a scene where, his suitcase gets knocked over, he's picking up all this stuff out of his suitcase, and, I've seen that cut before in a video about a famous panel from a convention about Sakuga. Have you ever seen the Sakuga panel?
No.
It's a lot of people, that's how they discovered the term Sakuga and the idea of it, is that there was this panel recording where they were explaining that, like, you know, there's more advanced animation that's, like, just more fluid, more detailed, you know, and they were explaining how typical Japanese animation works, how you draw the keyframes and then you do in-betweens on those keyframes. And they used this movie as an example of, like, that to an extreme, where the character moves at, like, very angular points. Like, you see him, like, lean down, and then you see him reach, and then you see him pull back, and it's like, it really is just, like, taking straight shots between the different keyframes, which makes it feel like moving manga, kind of, you know? And, It's pretty awkward, and it's funny, though, because the other two aren't like that at all.
Yeah.
Like, the other shorts are, especially the first one, is, like, totally freeform Sakuga experimental animation, whereas this one's, like, so keyframe heavy as to be strange. I don't know if that's just Otomo's directing style of the time or what, but it's a little awkward, and I also thought it went on longer than it needed to. Like, it seems like, because it's kind of supposed to be a comedy. It's like a dark comedy, but the joke is evident immediately and then is hammered on for like 15 minutes. This is the longest of the three. Like, the first two are 10 minutes each. This one's 20 minutes. It feels very long, and by the time you get to the end, it's just kind of like, oh, finally we're doing what was obviously going to happen,
Yep.
you know? Do you have any closing comments on this one?
On this one,
No.
it's I.
Tired of talking about movies.
Are you?
I am. I'm tired. What would you score this? Do you want to score them individually or as a whole?
On Mal, I think I gave it an 8, but I can score them each individually because I think that's more appropriate. Because
Okay.
they all have their own, like, unique style and narrative, and
Right.
they're each done by a different person. The first one, I would give that a solid 8. The second one, I'd also give it an 8.
Yeah.
Higher 8. This one, I would give probably a 7.
I would give the first two both a strong 8 as well. Like, close. I gave this a 9 on Mal, mostly because I was just so, like, glad it existed.
Yeah.
Like, seeing the first one and seeing just that, like, incredibly beautiful, like, style and ideas in it, and I was just like, oh, that was so cool. Like, it felt good to have seen it, you know? And the second one, much the same feeling. It immediately inspired me to go write the art house video. Like, if anyone's wondering about that video, we literally watched Neo Tokyo, you know, while we were stoned. We watched Neo Tokyo. It had been a few hours though, so we weren't like tripping balls or anything. Yeah, everything we've reviewed so far. But we watched Neo Tokyo. We walked outside. I had a cigarette, and I said some stuff where I was like, you know, now that I think about it, like, the appeal of art house is kind of like this. And you were like, yeah, sure. And then you went to go do your makeup for 20 minutes, and I wrote that whole video in that time. And then edited the whole thing the next day because we took Adderall. It got really hyper. So that was all just a result of watching this movie and really wanting to talk about The Running Man because it gave me thoughts about art house. So, like, in that sense, I was greatly appreciative of this movie. Even though I gave it a 9, though, and really that's like a strong 8. Again, there's no nuance in the scores. Like, I could see myself lowering that score once I look at it compared to what else I've given a 9 and be like, oh, did I really like it as much as this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like,
and the third one I'd give, like, a 6, because I was honestly pretty bored.
Yeah, I mean, after we've been, like, so overwhelmed by the first two that, like, this wasn't as, like, animated, and it wasn't as creative or out of the box where...
Funnily, that's kind of the same with both, because there's another one of these.
Yeah.
Like, after Neo Tokyo, they made one called Memories in 1995, which has the first short is the most popular one. It was known for being written by Satoshi Kon. It wasn't directed by him, but, like, people usually sort of package it into his filmography. The second one by Tensai Okamura, which I like a lot, and the third one by Katsuhiro Otomo. And again, in that one, the Otomo one's kind of like, just like a little weird and off-kilter. You're like, okay, that one's, it's a neat idea, I guess, but I wasn't so into it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's it, I guess. That's it for the first episode of Digi May Review Anime Movies. I don't know if this will be weekly or bi-weekly, depends on how many movies we watch that we want to comment on. This is not all the anime movies we've watched recently. These is over the course of the last month or so. Just whichever ones I thought we'd have things to say about.
The most interesting ones.
Yeah. Also, we might do episodes that aren't an hour and a half long. I didn't know how long it would take to cover these 4, you know, so.
Because it had been so long since we've seen a bunch of them, like, there was no way to predict how much we would have to say
I was scared we wouldn't have much to say about Ringing Bell because it's been so long since we watched it.
And
you remembered it way better than I did.
I was, like, blown away because, like, there were so many, like, parallels to Ginga Neger Boshingi where I was like, there has to be some relation to one another. Like, there's no reason the bear would have a red fucking thing on his head. Unless that's, like, a common thing in Japanese lore.
I have no idea.
But I wouldn't fucking know.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that May and I are doing some commentaries on some old movies sometimes,
if you want
maybe.
to see the Guyvers.
Yeah, we watched the Guyver and recorded a commentary on it, which is only on Patreon, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or not. People seem to enjoy it. Maybe we'll release one publicly at some point. I don't think we'll do them that often, but if you want to watch us commentate on an hour-long Guyver
watch
movie.
Me go bananas talking about atomic bombs as a motif in an anime.